This is Creepy and Geeky. Welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and on today's episode, I'm continuing my series on Edgar Wright films with Scott Pilgrim with guest Onika. But first, Donna and I are talking about the stuff we got into this last week. How's it going, Donna?
Hey, Robert, it is going good. I love your welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I love the way that sounds.
I'm trying to do it a little bit more down rather than up, like I've been doing it for the last several years. Um,
I absolutely love it. I think you should keep up with that.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
But it's going good. I'm glad. I know you just had a birthday, so happy
I
belated birthday
did.
to
Thank you,
you.
thank you. I'm the big 5'1". So
Child, please. You're a baby. I'm gonna be 5'4" in like another month. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, you got me beat by a couple of years.
Oh boy. Don't remind me.
We're
I
just a
reminded you.
I know. We're just a couple of old fogies on the airwaves.
Oh, speak for yourself. But anyhow, what you been up to this week? What'd you get to see?
I did get to go out and see one movie. There's still a few out there I need to see, unfortunately. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get to them in time. But I definitely got out to go see the new Christopher Landon movie, Drop. So we were just talking about him last week with the Happy Death Day movies.
Right.
But yeah, his new movie Drop came out this week, and it's a lot of fun. It's definitely a kind of like a throwback thriller kind of thing. If you've seen the trailers, you know what's going on.
Hmm.
But definitely a lot of fun. There's a great romantic kind of couple thing going on. It's a couple on a first date, and so yeah, it's definitely fun. Christopher Landon was one of the co-writers on the earlier movie Hard Eyes that came out this year as well. So it's fun to see him playing around in these kind of romantic horror movies in a way. So
That's been pretty popular, that theme of rom-com horror. Your
yeah,
Monster and Hard Eyes, and I'm assuming Drop, like you said, has some of the thriller rom-com shades
yes,
to it.
definitely.
Well, I'm excited to watch that one. It looks
Yeah,
like it's right up my alley, so I'm glad that you got to see that one, and it was
yeah,
good.
yeah. It's definitely fun. Definitely a lot of fun. If you've seen the trailer and it makes you want to watch it, definitely go check it out because it's fun. Um, it's exciting. So, but what do you got for me this week?
So, you know me, I did not go see a damn thing, but
You never do. You never do.
I never do. But there is something I did want to bring to your attention, which you probably already know about, and I don't care if you know about it, but I'm going to talk about it anyway.
Do
Hulu
it.
is going to be dropping on June 6th, Predator, Killer of Killers. It's going to be an animated series. Is that on your
Yes,
list?
that is on my list. Yep.
How exciting is this? We had already
Oh
been
my gosh.
discussing this world building and having the Predator in different time periods.
Different time periods. It looks like every episode is going to be a different time period.
So I love this because they have a
Yes.
Viking raider that's with her young son. We've got a ninja in feudal Japan who's fighting against his samurai brother. We also have a World War II pilot. I hope this does so well that they keep
Oh,
making
me
these.
too. Yeah. No, and this is something I think this is kind of something because this is I don't know how involved beyond producer he is, but Dan Trachtenberg who did um
Pray.
Prey.
Mhm.
Yeah, he did Prey. And so he is doing this show, and so I know there have been people been talking about this for a long time. Also, is just doing Predator in different time periods throughout history of how often they've come to our planet to hunt us. And so it's gonna be interesting for sure. I'm excited. It's definitely it's in a unique art style, kind of similar to I would say What If that they've been doing over on Disney Plus.
I was thinking more like Star Wars Visions, but yeah, I could see the
Yeah,
what if
yeah,
too.
yeah. Um, yeah, it's definitely not exactly like What If, but it's definitely got a more kind of, I don't know, it feels, it's kind of hard to nail down exactly like what kind of style it is. Definitely feels kind of realistic, but also
Hmm.
not. So it's definitely looks very interesting though. I'm
I'm super
excited to check it
excited.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, I know we're gonna be like gushing over that as soon as it
Oh
comes
yeah,
out.
yeah. I'm a huge Predator fan, so like I'm excited to see what they do with this. Yeah, I know that's definitely what fans have been wanting for a while is to check out that. And I know Dan Trachtenberg supposedly got another movie coming out too in the Predator franchise.
Hmm.
So
Badlands. Hmm.
yeah, so that's gonna be very cool as well. So all right, yeah, that was definitely one of the ones that was on my list for this week. But I have another one. There's a new Apple TV movie coming called Murderbot. Um, and this looks very funny.
It
Um,
does.
Alexander Skarsgård plays this uh, robot that becomes aware. And he's a, he as over the course of it, like he's like a protection robot.
Hmm.
And he's there to protect these people, but also they realize he's become self-aware and he calls himself Murderbot. Um, and that but it's also it's but you can kind of tell throughout the trailer that he calls himself Murderbot and he's definitely there to protect them and stuff like that, but it's like he's been watching all these movies and TV shows and stuff like that when he's just kind of like standing there, and it's I think it's giving him an appreciation for humanity,
Hmm.
and so it's like, sure, he's called Murderbot, but he's not really gonna just outright kill everybody. So it's kind of a like a nice AI.
It's very
Um,
cute and cheeky. I
yeah,
like it.
yeah, and I love Alexander Skarsgård, so I love that because he's very funny. And I love when he gets to play on the funny side of things. So definitely, definitely something to check out. It looks like a lot of fun. What's your next thing?
So the next thing I wanted to talk about is that I know you saw this in theater, Companion, the sci-fi horror
Yes.
film. That's going to be dropping on HBO Max on Friday, April 18th, and also on regular HBO on Saturday, the 19th. I'm excited to watch this. I know you've talked about this before, but it'll be nice to see Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid, who seems to be every freaking where. Every time I turn around, Jack Quaid's
Right.
in a freaking movie. But you know, this looks like a lot of fun. I remember you saying that it was a lot of fun
Oh,
and
it's so
kind of
much
an
fun.
interesting premise. So just to put that in everybody's earballs, that that's going to be available if you have the HBO service
Yes.
for you to watch.
Yes, definitely. I would suggest watching it. If you're a fan of my show, definitely watch it. I will be covering it later in just a little bit.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah. So definitely check it out now, so you're prepared when I talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah, because he be giving you spoilers.
I will. I will. I will spoil the hell out of it. Um, So the last thing I have is for a movie, the new Wes Anderson movie that's coming out called The Phoenician Scheme. And it's your typical Wes Anderson. So if you like his whole vibe, the silly stuff that he does, definitely check that out. It's got a huge cast as always. Benicio
Mhm.
del Toro, Tom Hanks, the usual cast of characters, pretty much like everybody he's ever had, plus a few extras. Um, so definitely, I dig his stuff. You gotta be in that wheelhouse to kind of do it. To kind of appreciate his goofy aesthetic and everything, but I'm definitely the target audience in that. I don't know how or why, but I just definitely am.
It's
To be
almost like watching an adult cartoon, his
Yeah.
movie.
Oh,
There's a lot of heart to it,
100%.
but there's a lot of slapstick too,
Oh
and
yeah.
this trailer had me rolling because they're
Yeah.
like assassins and they're like different sets, and I I agree with you. It has like every person that he's probably ever worked with and then
Right.
some, and then we got a couple of new ones in too.
Yeah. 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 I liked his last one. What was it? Asteroid City or Asteroid something?
Yeah, no, it's Asteroid City.
Okay, yeah, I was like, huh? Now I haven't seen everything. There's a few I've missed. I need to go back and watch. But I've seen a good portion
Mhm.
of his work. So I definitely appreciate what he's been doing. So um,
Everything is whimsical and
yeah, it's just
so
fun.
fantastic. Yes,
Yeah,
definitely a lot of fun. I picked up a couple of his films from the Criterion when they had their
yeah.
last sale, just because I was like, I gotta bulk up on all of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Everything of his always goes to Criterion too. Like they're just like they're on top of that. Like immediately they grab his stuff. So it's definitely I got to get some of those too because I definitely don't have any. I wish they'd put them out on 4K already.
Yeah.
But I don't want to. I think that's why I haven't gotten them yet is because they're only still on Blu-ray. So I'm just like waiting for the
Yeah,
inevitable
you might as well. Why
4K. Yeah,
upgrade twice,
yeah,
Just wait.
exactly. I've done that way too many times. Like even recently, I bought Immaculate on Blu-ray because it was only available on Blu-ray, and then like 2 months later, they're like, "Huh, it's coming out on 4K now." And I
Yeah,
was like,
just wait
"You
it out, man.
bastards!" Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to wait on things because some stuff. But it's interesting though because some stuff still is only coming out on Blu-ray, and never gets upgraded to 4K, and I understand that. So I'm usually like okay, I wait a little while and then see if that happens. And if it doesn't, then I'm like, okay, I'll just grab it on Blu-ray finally. But yeah, it's just like, um, but yeah, it's just I don't know, it's ridiculous. But yeah, check out the Phoenician Scheme. It looks hilarious.
Mhm.
Looks definitely a lot of fun if you're down for his vibe. So, what else you got for me?
So I only have 2 things left. One is Shudder is actually, coming up with well, I say coming up with Greg Nicotero, there is going to be a horror competition series called Guts and Glory that's gonna be debuting later this year. I think they're having it on Shudder and AMC Plus since they're
Mm,
partnered,
yeah,
and it really is, more of an effects type of competition, kinda like Face Off when they did that on Sci-Fi Channel,
yeah,
but I'm all here for that because I really like to see special effects. I'm hoping they do more of special effects and not just the makeup like they did on Face Off. I hope we get to see,
yeah.
actual things that they're creating, monsters and whatnot, but that's one that's gonna be, debuting later on this year, probably around October if they're smart. I would do it around
Right?
October.
Yeah.
And the last thing I wanted to talk to you about is the poster for Ari Aster's Eddington.
Oh,
Have you
I did
seen the
not
new
know
poster
that.
for that?
No, okay.
Okay. So far it's just a poster. We don't have a trailer. If it was a trailer, I would be completely
Yeah,
over
yeah,
the
yeah.
moon. But the premise is in May of
What?
2020, set in the pandemic area. A standoff between a small town
How?
sheriff, played by Joaquin Phoenix, and a mayor, Pedro Pascal, sparks a powder keg as neighbor is pitted against neighbor in Eddington. And the poster is unreal because there are buffaloes falling off a cliff, and
Yeah,
I'm
I
a
just saw
little
that.
yeah, so, just throwing that out there on your radar because, we are both rabid Ari Aster fans, so
Yes, I don't care for Joaquin Phoenix, but like everybody else in this movie, like
everybody in that cast looks
Pedro
great.
Pascal and Emma Stone, I'm fucking sold.
Right?
Like, I'm sorry, but I mean, Pedro Pascal alone would have sold me, but
I
like Emma
know.
Stone on top of that, hell yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it looks like that's all we have so far. That just came out this week. I think it dropped the same day Phoenician Scheme did, but,
okay.
yeah, I when we get a trailer, then we're definitely gonna be rabid fans
Oh,
at that point,
yeah.
like, "Oh my god, when is this coming out?"
Yeah, no, definitely. Oh man, that's so cool. Um,
I
yeah,
always love
no,
when I bring stuff that you don't know.
no, I know. I definitely did not know about this at all.
I
I
think
was
there's
like
some other really big people in it too, like Austin Butler and,
Austin Butler, Clifton Collins Jr. is in
Clifton
it.
Collins Jr. I haven't seen him do anything in ages.
I mean, I know he's been around doing stuff. He's one of those actors who like at one point he seemed like he was in everything
Mhm.
and then seemed to have vanished. It was like that with Peter Stormare. I always bring him up when I say this because Peter Stormare in like the late 90s, early 2000s was like in everything.
Yeah, we were
He was
rocking that.
Papa.
He was in a movie or a TV show, Prison Break,
Yeah.
any of that was crazy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Prison Break. I forgot about that he's in that. Oh man, that show was good. The first season.
Yeah, the
Um,
first season. You're right.
the rest of the series was
Mm.
good. The first season was great. The rest of the series was good. Wasn't great, but it was good enough to keep you going because it was just
Why didn't they
wild
just
enough.
end it once they left the prison? We didn't need all the
Yeah, it was
extra
silly to
bullshit.
continue to do the extra stuff. But
Anyway,
yeah, so yeah, Peter Stormare was everywhere, and then I was like, where did he go? And it, like I look at his IMDb, and it's like he's literally been working the whole time. He just hasn't been in things that I knew about or
right.
anything else. And so it's always weird when that like people come and go like that. So, but yeah, no, I'm that's interesting. But yeah, Western film with Pedro Pascal and Emma Stone and I guess Joaquin Phoenix. Um,
I like how you just tagged him on, like,
yeah,
side
yeah,
note.
I guess he's the other star of the movie. Whatever.
You know who the real stars in the movie are. Don't worry about
Right?
that.
Pedro Pascal, hands
Thank
down,
you.
is the real star of this movie. Dude, I will watch him in almost anything, man. Like the fact that he's gotten to be this old without being like, I mean, I know he's what in his 40s. Um, but the fact that he's gotten to be the age he is and only now is becoming a huge star. Like I know like, kind of Game of Thrones broke him out, but like even
Hmm.
then he wasn't like as big as he is now. Like now he's like huge, like he's crazy big
Some
time.
people need to be older though to appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they don't fall through the cracks. Like somebody like Coleman Domingo, he needed to be his
Yeah.
age because he's so good. And if
He is
he
so good.
sometimes when you get famous too young, you don't appreciate the craft. And I think these guys do. So I'm loving the
Yeah.
crop of like 50 and up dudes in
Oh
movies
man.
now.
They're like it's so weird and fantastic. Like it makes me feel good being an older guy and knowing that yeah, oh man, yeah, Pedro Pascal just turned 50. So yeah, he's literally a year younger than me. Um
Oh, so y'all are both Aries.
yeah, April 2nd, 1975. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah. He was born literally uh not even a full year after me, like 10 days less than a full year.
Yeah, I
Um,
really do feel like that. There's some people, not that younger people can't handle this type of fame and
yeah,
but they are suited for the roles that they're in. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, 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 I agree with you. I think that, with somebody like Pedro Pascal, especially, I think, with him, like, and he appreciates his fame on a different level than people who may have come up in it and like got famous younger.
Mhm.
Like he understands like the work he's put in for it. And I feel like Pedro Pascal is just like the nicest fucking guy
He
ever.
really does come
Um,
across that way, right?
oh man, he's so like, and it's so funny too, because like I'll say that about Coleman Domingo. Every time I've seen him in any kind of like interview or something like that, he comes off as the most like down to earth, like warm guy ever, even when he's playing like completely shitty people.
Yeah, I think
Um,
he's really grateful too. I mean,
yeah,
it's not easy to maintain success constantly and have, role after
yeah.
role and I don't know. These guys they're two of my favorites. That's the only reason why I
Oh yeah.
shouted it for
No, no,
you.
no. Like right now, like of the current actors and stuff like that, hell yeah. No, Pedro Pascal and Coleman Domingo are like top
Yeah.
tier. Like, and they deserve all the fucking accolades they're getting right now because they're just fantastic. I've been seeing
Mhm.
little bits of Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey talking to each other and
Ah,
interacting and stuff like that. And they
I
have the
love that.
cutest fucking friendship ever. Oh, it's so cute. It kills me. It's like so good. It's like the best father-daughter like
Mhm.
friendship ever. And I know Bella's non-binary, but she plays a girl on, or they
Right,
play a
yeah.
girl on
The
The
Last of
Last of Us.
Us.
But yeah, I can't wait for The Last of Us as we're recording tonight, the day of the premiere of season 2. So I can't wait to watch that later.
My
So
goodness.
it's gonna be
You have no idea how excited
fantastic.
I am right now.
Oh, I know you're excited because you can't. I know you got those episodes about cooking
Oh
too,
my
because you're gonna be talking about
gosh.
it again. So yeah, no, it's gonna be fantastic. It's gonna be a lot of
So
fun.
that
So
was literally my last thing. I
yeah.
can't believe that. I'm so stoked that I got to bring that to you.
I'm glad too.
Oh
I'm
my
excited.
gosh.
This is gonna be really cool. I love that it's filmed in New Mexico also, because like
Right.
I lived in Albuquerque for
Oh,
10
right. I didn't
years.
even think about that
Yeah,
connection.
yeah,
Duh.
yeah. Yeah, I lived in Albuquerque for 10 years. And I consider it in a lot of ways my hometown. Because like previous to that, like because I didn't move there until I was 19. Um, but previous to that, I had moved around a lot because my dad was in the military.
Right.
And so I never really had a hometown. And so, I spent what, like 6 years there. Met my wife, had my son there, and then we moved to Colorado for 5 years, and then came back to Albuquerque for another 4 years before moving out here to Georgia, where we spent, my kids, their hometown is like here.
Right.
But like my hometown, like even though I've lived here in Georgia longer than I lived anywhere else in my life, um, I still consider Albuquerque my hometown because that's kind of where like my 20s were spent, like a good portion of my 20s. And so, and that, like I said, that's where I met my wife and had
Hmm.
my son and everything like that. And so it's like, and we had a lot of family there, that, it was kind of like that hometown for me. So yeah, so it's interesting whenever Albuquerque pops up in movies or TV shows like Breaking Bad or whatever, that it's like always so fun to go, oh my God, I know that place. So
Well, that'll be fun when this movie comes out for sure.
oh, absolutely. It's gonna be so good. So I can't wait to see that. And Ari Aster, like hopefully, it'll live up to it because Bo is afraid to not live up to it. So
Yeah.
yeah. But we'll
That's
always
all I'm
have
going to
mid
say about that.
yeah, we'll always have Midsummer and Hereditary.
Yes, we will.
So hopefully Eddington will be good because it's a one word title again. We're back to one word title.
Hmm.
Hopefully some crazy good stuff will be happening. Uh, but yeah, no, he had to get Bo's Afraid out of his system. So but yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on as always. Thank you for surprising me with that because yeah, I had no
Yeah,
knowledge of that.
absolutely.
Super excited. So but yeah, no, always happy to have you on. And make sure to stay on after the break to listen to Onika and I talk about Scott Pilgrim, one of my favorite movies. So all right. Thank you again. On today's episode, we're continuing our look through the works of Edgar Wright with Scott Pilgrim versus the World with returning guest Onika. Welcome back to the show, Onika.
Thanks for having me again, Robert. I'm super
Yeah.
excited for this one.
Yes, this is actually one of my top favorites. This is one of my top 4 favorites on my letterboxd as well. So yeah, definitely a movie that I've been looking forward to talking about. So um,
It
I'm
is
a
one of my
I'm
favorites.
I'm a big Scott Pilgrim fan in every form. I enjoy the books, the original comic books that the became the source material for the movie, and enjoyed the movie and the later TV show Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. So and there's
I agree with you on all of that, and I've got one more. I have the video game.
I do have the video game also. I haven't played it a lot, but what I have played, I have enjoyed. So
Yeah. Well, I had it when it originally came out before it got
mm,
pulled. And I have
Yes.
never been so angry in my life to have something that I bought and paid for. It was the first game I paid for digitally, and it got pulled. And I'm like, I paid for that. Let me keep it.
Yeah, that's messed up. Yeah,
So
no,
like when I got it this time, I got a physical copy.
yeah, yeah. I don't have a physical copy. I have it both on Switch and on uh um Steam Deck. So, but
Talk about that Steam Deck, and I swear to God.
I love my
all my
Steam Deck.
jeal all my jealousy just comes pouring out, and it's just like I want to play nice indie games all by myself.
I'm finding out too, like, because like I've never been, I'll admit, I was never been a huge gamer. When I was a kid, I fancied myself more of a bigger gamer, even though I never had. So I had an Atari, like the old Atari back in the day. And see, we're already going off on tangents. Um, but
It is what people expect of us.
right, exactly. Uh, but I had an old Atari back in the day when I was a kid. I never got the Nintendo. My family was never well enough off or cared enough to get the Nintendo when it came out. And so I was always jealous of the kids who had it and would go over to friends' houses and play it when I could. Um, and then I did end up getting a Game Boy, one of the original Game Boys, back when they came out with the whole Tetris that came with it and everything. Loved that. I was a huge Tetris head. Um, Loved playing that all the time. But I actually played, I would play arcade games too. I mean, because that's what we had back in the day. So I played like some of the classic stuff. I played Tetris on the arcade. I played Double Dragon and Golden Axe and all that stuff. Loved Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat on the arcade machines and everything. It was a lot of fun. It was a great time, growing up. I used to get Game Pro magazine, um, just to keep up with the games, even if I wasn't able to get them all. I was still um, enjoying reading about them all. So transition, eventually, after I met my wife, she had a Super Nintendo. So that was like like my next thing that I was able to play on at home. And, and I had Game Boys off and on um, throughout all that. And then we would transition up to the various Nintendo evolutions. And I did end up getting a PS2, and I've had the PlayStation from 2 to 4. I don't have a 5 right now. Um,
Ah,
and and I probably won't ever. Because now with the Steam Deck, there's really no reason. Because I can play it handheld and then I can play it plugged into my TV. So, and there's really not much. I do play Fortnite still. I've been playing that since the pandemic. And then so I still play that, and that's the only thing I play on PlayStation now. Everything else, I actually ended up buying most everything I already had on PlayStation. I bought it over on um Steam now, so that I could play it through the Steam
so
Deck.
so what I'm hearing is you don't want to play super cool Spider-Man games.
I have the first two Spider-Man and the second one, the Spider-Man 2 is on, they're all on Steam.
Oh,
So
they're all on Steam, then
yeah,
you're good.
yeah, yeah.
Then all
PlayStation,
is well.
yeah, Sony has been releasing some of their stuff on like some of their exclusives on PC finally. So I've been able to I got the first two Spider-Man Remastered and Spider-Man Miles Morales on there. And then I'm looking at getting the Last of Us games eventually, and some other stuff that was Until Dawn is on there now also. So there's some
Love Until
interesting things
Dawn.
that what.
Love Until Dawn.
But yeah, so I'm excited. Like, and I'm finding out that like realistically, like looking back on my past, I really kind of like handheld gaming a lot more than anything else because I did enjoy the various Game Boys and Nintendo DS and having a Switch and everything like that. It's nice to just kind of sit in your chair and just like have that ability to play just sitting down, wherever you're at, rather than being locked into a TV. And
Hmm.
but also having that's what's nice about having the Steam Deck, is that it can plug into the TV as well. So I like that flexibility. So sometimes I'll play something on the TV as well, rather than just straight on the what's it called? Just on the Steam Deck itself. But yeah, I did play the other day. I did crack open Scott Pilgrim after I had watched everything and read all the books again, and I was just like, let me play the game for a little bit. I didn't get very far before I had to stop, but
It is very like Origins coded, so it is a hard game. Like it is not
yeah, no, it's
easy.
not easy. Yeah, that's what ended up happening, is I ended up dying, and I was like, well, crap. I guess I'll start again later. So,
And this
uh,
time I'm just glad like they give you Wallace right up front,
yeah,
and I don't have to like pay extra for him because I had when it originally came out, I had to
yeah, he
buy
was
him.
DLC. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of like gaming history, I never had a Nintendo, never had an Atari. My first ex I played like Nintendo at somebody's house maybe a
Yeah.
couple of times, like Mario at people's houses. But the first time I ever had an experience with like gaming was going to my friend TJ's house, and he had a PlayStation, like the
Mm,
original
yeah.
PlayStation, and he popped in Spyro the Dragon. And I was like, oh, this is over for me. I need it. I need it. So, like, I guess my mom and my grandma and everybody like teamed up together and got me a PlayStation, and they got me Mortal Kombat.
Yes.
And so
I love Mortal Kombat.
we're sitting there on Christmas playing Mortal Kombat, and my grandparents are like, "This is really violent," and it's just like, and my grandfather's general ideal of everything was, "It's fine, they'll be fine."
Yeah, that's hilarious. I
So
love
that
that.
was fine. And so for all of my life, I've basically just been buying PlayStations. I've had a
Yeah.
PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4, and I have a 5. I had a PSP. I had a PSP, couldn't afford the Vita when it was a thing, so I never had a Vita, but I did have a PSP, and I
That's
loved
awesome.
my PSP more than anything. Like I like was on it constantly. And then someone stole it.
No. Oh man,
Yeah.
that's messed up.
And I know who it was because my I was during college, and my friend was dating like this like super junky dude, and like I had left it in her car, and her car was locked. And
Yeah.
like when I got out of her car later, I looked in the case because it was in a case. I had a case with it and all my games. They had taken the PSP, but not taken any of my games other than Crisis Core, which was in there at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, he took it. He definitely took it. And like, she wouldn't. I was like, he took it, and he took it, and that he took it for like this reason, and she wouldn't like back me up because he
Mm,
was her boyfriend. And I'm like, okay, well, fine, whatever. That's like what it, I bought that. I worked for that. It was
yeah.
mine.
Oh man.
But yeah, so that was that. But I've never, but as of right now, between me and my spouse, we have a PlayStation, an Xbox. I have a Switch. The only thing we're really missing at this point is a Steam Deck because he does have a PC. It's not working right now because he needs a new graphics card, and Lord knows those cost some money.
Yeah.
So,
That's too
like,
funny.
so right now, everything that we want to do is like on consoles. And I'm like tempted to be like, all right, listen, we're gonna have to switch consoles for a while, and you play on the PlayStation, and I play on the Xbox because I want to play Avowed and like South of Midnight when it comes out.
That's funny.
Yeah, but like just I got my PlayStation 2 because like I saw the commercial for Kingdom Hearts, and I don't know how to explain how I felt when I saw that commercial, other than it was like every wish I had in my life came true. And it's not like the original commercial for Kingdom Hearts explained anything, but it just made me feel so happy looking at it that I just was like, okay, I need it. So I like had to explain to my mom, I'm like, um I need this game, but I don't have the console for it. So it took a while, but I did eventually get a PlayStation 2 and Kingdom Hearts and Devil May Cry, which she found at like a garage sale, like in like just a blank old Game Crazy case.
That's funny.
And Lord knows I was not the target demographic for Devil May Cry, but I loved it and I became really good at it.
That's funny.
So my husband, when Devil May Cry 5 came out, like I was like, you want to like see how good I am at this game? And he's like, sure. And he watched me freaking beast mode that shit in 24 hours.
That's
Like
funny.
just beat the whole game.
Oh man.
He's like, okay, you are good at that. I'm like, I'm good at two games, and it's Borderlands and Devil May Cry and Final Fantasy X too.
There you go. All right, but let's transition ourselves back to Scott Pilgrim, the real, because we got a
Yeah.
lot to talk about.
Oh boy.
So so obviously, Scott Pilgrim versus the World is a movie based on a series of comic books by Brian Lee O'Malley. Who did the writing and art, and based it kind of on his own world, his own experiences. It's definitely a heightened um, bit of all that, but it was like he was in his 20s when he was making the book, and this was like a lot of these characters were based on friends and people he knew and stuff like that. So then midway through, well, actually, I think it was like right after the first book came out, they wanted to make a movie based on it. Somebody came to him and he said, sure. And then Edgar Wright got attached. And then it took a few years to, get it going. And it did end up um, getting made before the comic book series ended. So the endings are different, similar, but different. Um, and I think that that's what I think that's in a way, I think it's great that they did have that freedom to kind of craft their own ending, and we'll get into that.
Hmm.
But then it's been like a number of years later, and after the movie came out and was a box office bomb, um, that they did a Netflix series that kind of addressed some issues that people had had with the books and the movie, but just kind of like brought the story around in a different way. So. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the movie, and we'll talk about the books and everything else kind of in context as we
Hmm.
go along. Um,
Yeah.
but
And that's the one thing. It's just like it has at this point what it achieved what I would like to call cult status.
oh
Like
yeah,
I
most
believe that like
definitely.
at this point, like it didn't do well in the box office, but it is now deeply beloved.
Hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. No, it's definitely
Like
it did.
Tron.
Yeah, 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 yeah. The Tron movies definitely um were not successful at the time, and then Terminator, same. Terminator didn't do well at the box office, and then became a cult hit.
I
So
didn't know that.
yeah, yeah, the very first
And
Terminator did not do well, and if
and
it weren't
and
for the
it,
fact that it sold well on video and did well on cable, that there probably would have never been sequels to it. So,
my husband watches it sometimes, and like I fall asleep every time, and he's like, I don't know how you do it because it's basically a horror movie. And I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
you're right. I wake up during points and I'm like, yeah, that's definitely a horror movie. But like I don't know what it is about like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he puts me to sleep. And it's not like it's not about him. When I was a little kid, every Christmas my family would watch Twins before we went to like during Thanksgiving, and they'd always watch it late, so I'd always fall asleep on the couch with my family while Twins was on. So now I just associate Arnold Schwarzenegger with getting like a good night's sleep.
He's your own personal white noise machine.
Yes.
But yeah,
That
no.
and hard to kill the Steven Seagal movie.
Well, I could see that. Steven Seagal is kind of snoozy.
That was one of his good ones.
Too funny. All right. But yes, Scott Pilgrim is when I didn't get to see this in the theater. It came out in 2010. But I did not get to see it in the theater when it came out. Um, but once it was available for video or on streaming or cable or wherever it was at, then I got to watch it and I fell in love with it immediately. It hits all my buttons. It's this crazy mashup of comic books and video games. And so it's like great if you're into any of that. So especially if you're into all of that.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually had read the comics before I had seen the movie because the comics were relatively popular. That is why I liked the
Yes.
movie in the first place. So I don't think I had read up to like what was published at the time of the movie. I had
Right.
read at least the first one.
Right.
Um and I was like, and I saw the trailer and I'm like, oh my God, this looks awesome. I need to see it. And so I ended up not seeing it like in a theater. I saw it at the drive-in. It ended up being like a double date. It is literally the first date I ever had with my spouse.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
it, yeah, so like on our anniversaries,
Extra
we watched
meaning.
Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, and it's really funny because like the other people we went on a date with, these are were two people who had been in a relationship for a really long time with one another and like were just complacent with each other, but not interested in being with each other anymore. So
Mm.
they had like a fight midway through the
Oh
movie
no.
and they left the car.
Oh
So it was
man.
just me and my spouse, who also conveniently, everybody knows is named Rob as well. Um, and it was just us watching the movie, and I'm like, this is a great night for us.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful experience, like because it's like me and him really enjoyed the movie and we both loved it to pieces. So like it was a good first date.
Yeah. That's
Like a very
funny.
good stepping stone on building our relationship. Um, but like I saw it and I'm like, I loved it, and I couldn't believe when I heard that it didn't do well. And I'm like, what is
Yeah.
wrong with people? Oh my God, you're all so dumb.
Well, and it's been proven at this point that you were correct because it definitely has taken off and in a way that most people at the time didn't embrace. I think it was one of those movies where it was, 2010, you are looking at this is, Marvel started the MCU in 2008. DC was doing their stuff. So there was already, and the 2000s were littered with comic book adaptations. So I think this was probably just one of those movies that kind of everybody was like, whatever. It's just
This
another
isn't like a
comic book
really
adaptation.
well-known property.
Yeah, and it wasn't really well known. Yeah. For those people who read the book and everything like that, it was um it was well received, but that wasn't enough to do well enough at the box office. But I mean, this is like, when you read down this cast list also, I mean, this is like, this is Edgar Wright coming off of both Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. And Shaun of the Dead was wildly successful. Hot Fuzz was a
Hmm.
little less so, but still not bad. And then this was um the third movie he made. And he's got this wildly awesome cast of people who um were young at the time and have gone on, I think, to even more fame. Um, you know, most of them, Michael Cera, as Scott Pilgrim, he was already pretty famous at the time for having done
And I've
Arrested
never
Development and
I
stuff. Go ahead.
I've never seen like a more perfectly cast character than Michael Cera for Scott Pilgrim. Like
He's so good.
Scott,
He's so
he
good.
was so incredibly perfect for the role that like it's just like anything else I see you in now is gravy because this was all you ever needed to be for me.
No, when you go back and you look at the comic books and you see how well they cast everybody, it
Hmm.
is it is perfect casting. Everybody is literally perfectly cast.
Hmm.
It's amazing how well they did in terms of all this. Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Ramona. She's so good.
I love her.
Perfectly, yeah. Kieran Culkin as Wallace, of course.
Love
Um,
him.
Anna Kendrick as Stacy, Scott Pilgrim's sister. Uh, she's great. She's a very small role for her, but still great. Brie Larson, future Marvel actress, plays Envy Adams, one of Scott Pilgrim's ex-girlfriends. Allison Pill is Kim Pine. Aubrey Plaza. Uh, let's see. Got Ellen Wong as
It's Julie.
Knives, and yeah, Aubrey is Julie. Um, Aubrey Plaza. I love Aubrey Plaza and pretty much anything
Yeah,
she's
who
in.
me too. Like the whole reason I started watching the show Legion was because she was in it. I
Yes,
stayed for other reasons, but she still stayed the main grab.
right, right.
Because I also learned that I love Dan Stevens
Oh,
and
Dan
I'll
Stevens
watch
is brilliant.
anything he's in.
Yeah,
I'll
Dan
watch
Stevens is brilliant.
anything he's in, even if it makes no sense.
But yeah, we also have Chris Evans and Brandon Routh as two of the League of Evil X's
Mhm.
members. It's just a really stacked cast. It's amazing, like the amount of people who got in this, and then they for the follow-up TV show on Netflix, they actually
They all
got
came back.
everybody to come back to do their
And
voices.
it's
Now, most people are one-offs here and there, like little bits and stuff like that. Again, Anna Kendrick's role as Stacy's really small.
mhm.
But everybody is back, and it's amazing how they I mean, to be fair, it's voice work, so it's a lot easier in a way than trying to get everybody back physically.
Mhm.
But
But
I
at the
think they
same
did a
time, it was
great job. Go ahead.
mhm. But at the same time, like it's an amazing thing because they all came back out of sheer love. Like
Yes.
it wasn't even like a financial commitment or anything like that. It was just I came back because I love what this was. I loved this period. I loved this thing that I did in my life, this little piece of media where I struck it out. And it's just like, and it somehow like, in ways changed the cultural zeitgeist
Oh yeah.
in so many ways. And it's just like, I love this little frame that I am so willing to come back and do the voice for my character and get it all get back into that mindset. And I'm so happy to hear that everybody was coming back, that there was like no recast needed, nothing like that. Everybody was just like,
Yeah.
I'm game, I'm down.
They did the only there were only two roles that well, three roles that got cast. The twins got recast. They didn't bring back the original guys to do the voice for that. And then the voice, the narrator voice, which was originally Bill Hader, which is interesting in the movie.
I know,
They got
wild.
somebody else. They got somebody else to do that. But literally everybody else came back. It was insane how much they managed to get everybody back. But yeah, no, it's so this movie. I it's so hard to put into terms of just how much and I don't even have the connection you do to it, like having that relationship aspect to it. That it's just for me, it just is one of those movies that works on every level. Is just entertaining. I can watch it multiple times and never get bored with it.
Hmm.
And it's just entertaining. It's just like I said, because the cast is so stacked and so wildly good that, and it's such a perfect role for Michael Cera that it just works so
It
good.
it
It's
it
so hard to
all works
explain.
so well.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just came together, and it's a romp, and it's such a fun romp,
Right.
and it's just you're it's just like you're having such a good time when you're watching it that, like, any like little like critiques that you may have with it, you're not thinking of when you're watching the movie.
No.
Like it like anything that might potentially bother you doesn't show up when you're watching it. When you go back and think about it later, it's like, okay, I have some minor critiques, but
Well,
but
but
they
here's the
don't.
thing.
But that's
Like,
everything.
yeah, exactly. Well, and here's the thing. Like, I've heard people critique this and say that Scott is such a horrible person and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, he is. They literally from the outset, they tell you he's a horrible person. They tell
Hmm.
you he's dating a high schooler. And they're not
Yeah.
sugarcoating it. They're not trying to make him a good person for it. Like all of his friends are pretty much like, dude, that's not right. Um, and
Like Kim tells him that he's the scum of the earth.
yeah, and his sister's telling him, and um, uh, who's the other person I was just thinking of? Oh, his roommate Wallace tells him he shouldn't be dating her. And keeps telling him to break up with her. But that's like, so that's where I have gotten frustrated with the criticisms of it afterward because people like are trying to make it seem like because he's a horrible person that the movie isn't worth watching. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and I argue that number one, all protagonists don't need to be paragons of virtue. It's actually better if they're not, because most people are not paragons of virtue. Most people have complexities and badness within them that makes everybody kind of, depending on the perspective of whoever it is, makes everybody kind of shitty. Everybody's kind of shitty in their own way.
And
So
also, like, one of the things you have to learn about the protagonist is who the story's about. It doesn't mean that they're the hero. It doesn't mean that
exactly,
they're a good person. It's just who the
exactly,
story is about. Because,
exactly.
like, if you play, I'm gonna loop this back into Borderlands. If you are playing Borderlands, you are the protagonist. Now, necessarily, your characters aren't the best people, but when you look at the antagonist, he's a pretty bad person and also my favorite character in Borderlands too. But he thinks he's the protagonist of the story. And therefore, it just in his head, it justifies every horrible thing that he does in his mind. And it's just like, because he thinks the story's about him. And it's just like, it's not about you, Jack, but okay. So it's just like, it's who the story is about. They're not necessarily a good person. And I think like there's a lot of media that has come now, nowadays that like has better like put out that like necessarily the protagonist is not a good person. Like I hate to use this as an example, but probably the best way I can put it is like the show You. Joe is not a good person. He is the
Yeah,
protagonist though.
right. Yeah. No, and I think that's what I think that people need to like get, I don't know what it is with, there's this weird sometimes
I
on the internet
think.
there's this weird puritanical streak that
Mhm.
extends not just to not like the people who are weirdly like saying that there's too much sex in movies, which there's not, but
Hey,
but there it
as a sex repulsed asexual, I'm afraid I'm going to have to disagree. But I
yes, but
joke because
again,
you know me, I love
yeah,
Roger Corman movies.
yeah, but then that, I mean, but that's the thing is like, it, I'm talking about current movies. There's not a lot of sex in current movies.
I
And
I agree. It's it's I've seen the argument online where it's just like it's just like, listen, movies tell you when there's sexual content in it,
Yeah.
and you can usually get the idea of when it's gonna come, like unless it's one of those just like jump to a scene and people are
Right.
fucking, and it's just like for the most part, like when a sex scene is coming, and like in my case, like I again am sex repulsed. So it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna glance in the other direction while this is going on because I don't want to see two people just slapping together. Um, but
But
like
you,
for the most part, I have a complaint with um how like romances are portrayed and like forced in to stories that don't necessarily need them. They
no,
are
yeah.
right and very superficial. I have a complaint with the content in the way of like how it fits into a narrative. Moreover, and just generally like sexual assault added to a storyline to
Right.
like, make it a little more punchy. We figure make it a little more edgy. It's like all you've done is made me sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but like for the most part, like sex scenes in movies aren't a big deal. But yeah, I think that we do have like this really puritanical
Yeah,
view
and
on
that's what I was
things.
saying. Like,
Like,
besides the sex aspect of it, that people complain about the sex aspect, you get a lot of people who are complaining about flawed people being the protagonist in movies.
mhm.
And I'm like, but that's reality. And then on top of that, I actually kind of want not the greatest people being the protagonist sometimes. Somebody like Deadpool. Deadpool is an
Yeah.
inherently vile person.
Oh my
Um,
God. Like, especially if you read the earlier comics before he starts
yeah,
getting kind of funny. He's
yeah.
shitty.
Oh yeah. But I mean, but even just movie Deadpool himself is just a really shitty person in general. And but we still cheer for him. We still love that aspect of him. But I think that, everybody can't be, Steve Rogers, Captain America, Mr. Goody Two Shoes, and all this other stuff. I think that, because that does get boring after a while. And you need
I
some nuance in your characters. And I think that's what's great about Scott Pilgrim, both as a character and as a movie, is that he's not the only flawed person in there. And I've seen it so many times where people are just talk about how crappy of a character he is, and I'm like, yeah, but what about everybody else in this movie?
But one
Like
of the things that you
Ramona's
like people
terrible,
also,
and
I
go
was
ahead.
about to just say, like that was exactly what I was going to say. Ramona sucks too.
Oh,
Like
she's
the
horrible,
movie,
both
the
in the
movie
movie
doesn't
and the
put it.
books.
I would say that they really lessen it because they don't characterize her as much in the movie as they do in the book, obviously for obvious reasons. And also, I think that a lot of like her kind of story arc is like in the later books that came out after the movie
Yeah.
existed. But like Ramona sucks. Like
Yeah.
the whole League of Evil Exes exists because she cheated on almost every single one of them. And it starts out like she gives excuses every time. We were kids. We were this. We were
Yeah.
that. And it's just like every single time. It's not her fault. It's not my fault. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. And it's just like, but it is your fault, Ramona. And like, you don't take responsibility for that. And that is why you keep running because you do not stay and handle the consequences of your actions. Whereas
Right.
with Scott, Scott doesn't run, he just chooses to ignore
Right.
anything. Like he refuses to
He insulates.
acknowledge,
Yeah.
yeah, he refuses to ever acknowledge that what he's doing is the wrong thing. Like he objectively knows that dating Knives is wrong and that he is
Yes.
just using her because he feels insecure about himself after envy.
Well, and the interesting thing about it though is too that while he is dating Knives, I want to like really point this out that while he is dating Knives, he isn't trying to be romantic with her. He's not trying to be sexual with her. They hold hands, they walk around, they talk. She is a companion, somebody for him to be with that sure could potentially be that way, but he obviously doesn't see her in that way. She's almost like a little sister. I know that's going to sound weird, but she's almost like a little sister in a way, or just another friend, really, is all he was just looking for with her, is just somebody to kind of fill that in
I
a
would
way.
argue that he kind of sees her more like a pet.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just thinking about that as I was going through it and everything like that. He wants somebody to adore him. And
Yeah.
she fills that role. He wanted somebody who, I mean, I think it is companionship to a large
Mhm.
degree, but I also feel like it's definitely, he really appreciated the fact that she just really was into him,
Yeah.
and gave him like all that attention. He wanted somebody to give attention to and to get attention from. He needed somebody, like you said, like a pet. I hate thinking of it that way, but yeah, in a way it is. I don't think it's fully that way, but
No,
he
not in
ne
like the
yeah,
weird way that
yeah.
some people say that they want to like keep a
But
person as a pet.
yeah,
But like he treats it kind of like the way that you would want a dog to act. Like,
yeah,
oh, I'm excited to see you. I love everything you do. You're
yeah,
so cool. You're so everything. Like my world kind of is centered around you.
right.
He needed and wanted that. And it's just like, no, no, Scott, what you need is a therapist.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that it's just the interesting thing too about Scott is like you said, he didn't do, like, when you go through his story and stuff like that, he didn't really do any of the breaking up necessarily. Anytime he broke up with somebody, it was either not him or circumstances beyond his control. Because like when he broke up with Kim Pine, they it was because he was moving away and he had no choice in the
He didn't
matter.
even tell her. She had to find out
Yeah,
through
through
Lisa.
Lisa, yeah.
Lisa, a character who does not exist in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, definitely if you have not read the comic books, please go read the comic books. They are so good.
A
Um
bit of a warning on that, I think we should give people though. You have to remember that these books are older, and some language
yes.
uh, to to be expected. They use there's a heavy, 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 heavy use of the R slur in
Well,
pretty much
I
every volume.
yeah, I wouldn't say it's heavy. Like here's the thing. It's like
I
once
think
or
maybe
twice
because
per
it's
book.
I
Um
feel like I guess it comes off as like heavy because we're just not used to hearing it anymore.
Yes. Well,
Then
it's
yeah,
interesting too because they say it once in the movie as well, and I was actually like weirdly shocked by that this time. I was like, "Wait, they say it in the movie? What?" And so I was just like, "Wow, okay, sign of the times." Because it has been maybe a decade or so that people really started going, that's really not a great word.
yeah.
And we've tried to transition away from saying that. So I can see where, definitely, I don't want them to go scrub it either. You just have to understand that it's definitely a product of its time. And it's not used as a slur towards anybody who has um uh
Developmental disabilities.
developmental deficiencies. Thank you. I was like, my brain was like right there and I just couldn't think of it.
Yeah,
And
no,
then
they use it as a synonym for like stupid, which is
yes,
in and of itself
which
with
is
as
really
a
bad.
person
Yeah.
with disabilities, like that I one of the things that pisses me off the most is when people treat me like I'm stupid because I have like a disability.
Right.
Like I don't like that, but like yes, it's acknowledging that this is a sign of the time of which this book came out, and at least like one of the things you can accept is like at least in Scott Pilgrim, gay is not being used as an insult because the book is so full of gay characters you
Yes.
will just like, and it's just like, and they're not like ever like it's not ever like a stereotypical thing because Wallace is his own thing. And
Yeah.
then like it's just like, hey, there's this other character, he's here, he's gay. We're all over it.
Yeah. No, it's
But like
very,
I said, I
I
do
would
have
say Scott Pilgrim, the book, and even the movie are very queer friendly.
mhm.
Um, there's nothing inherently bad about the representation in either of
Other
those.
than the other than the phrase "you had a sexy phase"
Yeah, yeah.
about
But again, that's, Scott, and that's the thing. We
being
have
an
to
idiot.
we have to we have to realize that these were made by a man in his 20s.
20s.
That when they were being made, he was in his 20s. About characters who are in their 20s. If you are
About a character who is also stupid and really bad at like
exactly, and it's very
communicating
there's
at all.
there feels like there's an autobiographical quality to it for sure. Um, that I don't know how much is accurate or not. I haven't actually read too much into what he said about the characters and everything beyond, using names and locations and stuff like that were personal to him from growing up and everything. But because like his own sister's name is Stacy, so it's like, so I think there is a little bit of that in Scott. Brian is Scott in some ways. And so because he did have a male roommate that he shared a bed with, he wasn't gay. But so there were there were these aspects of it that kind of got blurred in the making of it, but definitely autobiographical in a lot of ways. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, those things aside, I think it really, if you have not read the comic books, it really benefits reading the comic books, because I will say a good portion of the first three books
Are the
are adapted very closely into the movie. Um,
Yeah.
and
The
then
first book is basically the movie,
oh
like in the
yeah,
movie, like
yeah,
scene for scene.
4, 5, and 6, they start to deviate, and then go wildly off of where the movie takes from. But it's just, I think that, you know, was despite any issues people might have with this stuff, I think that, watching uh, this movie is like going back to Scott, talking about how Scott is this flawed person and how, all of them are. I mean, Wallace is not a great person. He's kind of a terrible person
No,
at times too. Ramona's
but I love.
definitely terrible. Scott is dealing with um uh a constant sense of loss. And that's where he's searching for that connection. I think that's where, he had this really bad breakup with Envy, and this like betrayal in a way, that um that he was feeling, and he wanted somebody to be there to, I don't know, kind of fill that hole for a little bit. Of course, obviously it was very short-lived, because that's when he met and fell in love with Ramona. And to be fair, I mean, Ramona, the reason why he became obsessed with her is because of the subspace highway
Yeah,
that she
she
uses
appeared in
through
his
his head.
dreams.
Yeah. And so, she was literally the girl of his dreams. And, there's that and they obviously did have a really good connection. They found something in each other that um they both needed. They both needed to work through their crap. It may not have been the best time for them to meet and to work through their crap together. But I think that I think that it was beneficial for them both, because it did help in the end. It does help both of them grow and change and get past a lot of their issues, because, you know, Scott feeling abandoned and then her abandoning everybody, just was, they needed to work through that and see that they could both um come together and become what they each needed for each other, and to become better people in the process. And that extends to the Scott Pilgrim Takes Off series too, as well. We
Yes,
get
because the villain in Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is Scott.
yeah, yeah, older
And
Scott.
I think that is the best villain to have, because at the end of the comic books, yeah, Gideon may be the last person he fights, but Gideon's not the villain, so to speak.
Right.
Like they add that little thing about like how he has that little space in Ramona's head that doesn't let her like
Right.
move past him, and that's what he does to all his girlfriends. But it's kind of it like you could literally just like erase those panels and it would not change the story.
Right.
It
Well, and
like
I think that's what's interesting.
no offense to Brian Lee Malley because like he created with intent and I don't ever want to like diminish that,
Right.
but
No, like I mean,
he
Gideon in the
created it
comic
with
books is a very despicable person.
oh
Um,
god awful,
Even more so than he is in the movie. And in the
and he
TV
actually
show.
is super fun in the TV show
Yeah, yeah.
because he gets
Um,
to be like normal.
yeah, exactly. But it's just it's the movie version is very similar as well too, because like that's the thing, you take out the stuff that was in the comic book, you kind of get what's in the movie because he's still in her head in the movie as well. It's
Mhm.
via a different method, through the like the little microchip that's on her neck and everything.
Yeah,
But it's still a way, for him to control her. um and uh and I like that there were like similarities, even if they couldn't do the exact same thing, because Brian Lee O'Malley didn't know the ending when they were creating it. So
yeah. And
um
I think that they did a really good job of it because like I've seen many adaptations of things that like don't have an ending yet
yes.
and somebody has to and they just go and veer off in a way that like mostly anime they go off and veer in a direction that makes it just like kind of trite and
Yeah,
kind of
they
ruins it.
lean into tropes and and stuff, and not with and really doesn't like feel
Do the
like
subject
the
matter
source
justice.
material. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like
So like
definitely Edgar Wright and Michael Bacall, who co-wrote the script, they did a really good job at really understanding the material and probably really working with Brian Lee O'Malley and saying, "Hey, what is the direction you're going for with this? Does this work?" And Brian going, "Yeah, that sounds good. That works." There is an alternate ending to this movie that I don't like, and nobody
um,
liked so much that they ended up changing it to the ending that we got as well.
yeah, like the like there are people who like know of this ending and just like it's just like I don't even want to think about it existing. It's just like
Yeah.
none of us like it. All of us hate it.
So in the original ending, so for those who may not know, the original ending is Scott ends up with knives. And it just no. There's no reason for that. Like even in the comic book, they show that Knives outgrew him. And
Yeah.
we don't have as much time in this as we do in the comic books, because the comic book spends like the comic book series spans about a little over a year, and
Yeah.
whereas this seems to only span like a week. And so maybe a couple of weeks, but the it just feels like a betrayal of the character of Knives to have her get back with Scott. It also feels antithetical
Like
to
putting
who
Scott
Scott
right
is.
and it puts him right back in the same place he was where he's when he
Yeah,
started.
there's no growth. Yeah. And so, being able to grow and then being able to have that conversation with Ramona and then say, you know what? Look, we might need to work on some things, but let's do it together.
Yeah.
Which is great, in a way.
I think that's a good thing, like because these are two deeply flawed people who through their relationship with each other become better people, not necessarily because they want to be better for the other person, but because
They
like
want to become
they
better
well
for themselves. Yeah,
Scott does want to become a better person for Ramona in many
true.
ways, but Ramona and a lot of Ramona because Ramona is a lot of very very she's a selfish person.
She's very self-centered. Yeah, yeah,
she, her learning that she has to get better for herself is still selfish, but in the way that you need to be to grow as a human being. Because
yes,
all of these people are like in their, or like you said, early 20s.
Yeah.
And that is the period of time where you start figuring out who you are as a human being.
Yeah.
Like you have freedom that you've never had before in your life to figure out who you are. And unfortunately, Ramona's past is just a collection of like mistakes, well, mistakes that she won't acknowledge that she made.
Right.
And Scott is just so out of it
He's
and like rewrites
oblivious more than
narratives,
anything. Yeah.
and he rewrites narratives in his head. Like when Kim
Hmm.
talks to him in like the final volume, fifth or sixth volume, when he goes to visit her, and like he kisses her, and he's like, "We should have sex," and she's like, "We absolutely should not."
Right.
Um, because Wallace is like, go have sex with someone else, and it's like, Wallace, that's what you do. That's not what he does. Um, but like she's just like, do you remember Simon Lee? And he's like, yeah, I remember Simon Lee. I beat him up to save you. And she's like, he was my boyfriend. You just punched him.
Yeah. Yeah, the narrative changes. Yeah, what we saw in the earlier volume was not exactly what happened. And so it's like this mythology about Scott, and who he is and everything like that was like altered. Um
Yeah. And like I think one of the things, like, they never really, in the comics, they never really show the fight that Envy and Scott have, because a lot of
yeah,
it's from Scott's point of view, and Scott doesn't acknowledge that the fight happened.
right.
And it's just like everything you see is just like, you see like him viewing Envy as like somebody who became very selfish. He's like, oh, she's just like, oh, she only cares about herself. And it's just like, no, she's growing into her own. And it's just like,
Well,
and you didn't like it.
the envy situation is complicated because she had been involved with Todd before she met Scott.
That, yeah, that she was like Scott, technically Todd and Envy were cheating on both Ramona and Scott at the same time.
Yeah, and Scott was Envy's knives. Honestly, she
Yeah.
was she was his rebound. Or he was her rebound. And because she was missing Todd, and then as soon as Todd came back around again, she was like, "Oh, well, this is the real love of my life. I'm going off with him rather than be with
Yeah.
you, Scott."
But
Um,
also, like, he talks, like, one of the things Scott talks about is how she starts changing her clothes and her hair. And
she
it's just
did,
like,
yeah.
but like, and it's just like, okay, but that's also like, he didn't like the ways she was
True.
changing. And
Yeah.
it's just like, but she doesn't, it's just like, but this is who she wants to be. Like,
Right.
she's not a good person, but like,
Yeah.
she's allowed to like stop liking like anime
Yeah.
and
Well,
be more
and that was the
interested in
interesting thing about
fashion.
her. Yeah, and that was the interesting thing about her portrayal in the books too, because you get a lot more background about their relationship, how it started, how it progressed, and everything like that. And you see the change where she was kind of like this when they first met, she was kind of like this quiet, nerdy girl. And then over time, she changed her clothes, she changed her like a full appearance and everything. And then became more and more like she was too cool for him. And that
Mm.
rift began. And I think that's where, like, as much as, there's probably fault on Scott's part because he didn't want her to change. Yes. There was also a point where she was changing in a way that was going to distance them anyway. Like I think she felt there was a lot about what Scott was like was childish and she didn't want that anymore.
I
So
agree.
there's
I agree.
definitely, and I think that's what's interesting. That's why I think people should really go back and read these comic books as well, because it gives more depth to these relationships that you don't get a lot because the movies only have so much time to tell you things.
Yeah.
But it's the comic book gives you a lot more depth to the relationships, and they're very interesting, and gives you a lot more depth into the characters as well. Um, you can watch the movie and perfectly enjoy it and never read the comic books. But I think the comic books definitely give you that deeper, more nuanced information about the characters and the relationships, and you get to see kind of where um, these issues started at. Whereas we never see the actual full argument. I don't think we needed to see the full argument, even in the comic book, because you got to see the run up to it, and
Yeah.
understand that Envy was just moving away. And then once Todd came back into the picture, she was like, "Oh, okay, well, you're back. I'm gone."
Yeah. But
So
but I also think it's a good indication of never seeing the argument, because Scott, like, it's an indicator of like how much Scott just blocks out.
yeah, and that's the thing too, is that I think in a way there's Scott's problem, whereas Ramona just moves on to the next person and doesn't have like whenever things get either complicated or she gets bored, more than anything, she gets
Mm,
bored, that she moves on to the next person. Scott's issue is that I feel like he does it kind of to survive in a way. Because he misremembers, or like he runs away in a way, in a different way than Ramona did. That with the whole Kim issue, is like he told Lisa, because Lisa was his best friend. Um
mhm.
and he should have told Kim, but again, he was in high school, he was young in high school. And um anybody, we know how ephemeral some of those relationships were in high school, like even friends, people you dated and stuff like that. Sometimes it was like you would date for like a week and then you'd be on, like, then you'd break up and you'd either move on or you wouldn't have anybody or whatever. But it's kind of a weird, I don't know, like, again, these are people who are in their early 20s. Relationships are short sometimes. I mean, the fact that Ramona has seven people by the time she's 24, and to be fair, I mean, she only dated a few of them for like a day or a week or whatever. So,
Yeah, like
it's
Matthew and her were like middle school,
yeah,
hold
middle school
hands
for a
on
week.
playground.
Yeah. So, I think that's what's happening with Scott, is that, the envy thing hurt him more. And it was harder to get past because it feels like they were together for a lot longer, and she was integral to his life. Whereas Kim, like, I think Kim, it hurt him, but he was also younger. And
Hmm.
not being around her like helped in a way.
Hmm.
And so he was able to move on a little bit easier. And then when she came near him again, they did become friends. And so
Yes.
I think
And
that helped heal it in a lot of ways. Whereas, like, it's funny because in the movie it makes it seem like she's like still pining after him in a way,
yeah,
like she's
and
still haunted
she is
by
a
it.
hundred. She's like so over him, and it's just like
Yeah.
all she is just a really good friend.
Yes.
Like, Kim is probably, like, don't get me wrong, not dissing Steven Stills or anything like that, but Kim is probably the best friend that Scott has. And like, the downside is that he can't acknowledge it when it's going on, that she's
Yeah.
literally there for him every time something goes wrong. When
Yeah.
Ramona kicks him out, he stays at her house. When he's going through the breakup, he gets to go visit her at her parents. When
Yeah.
Ramona's having trouble, Kim talks to her.
Yeah.
Kim is like it's she's so underutilized in the movie.
No.
It's kind of sad
Yeah.
because she's such a
No, she is.
linchpin to
Yeah.
the book. She's so important in so many ways, because like she's kind of like a glue that holds
Yeah.
everything together just by being present and being herself, and just being the kind, like, coming off as super aloof, super uncaring, but it's just like, I do care about all of you. You're all stupid and I want you all to be happy, and I will
Right.
talk you, it's like, I will talk you through anything, anything you need to talk about. I am literally here for you. But please stop making such bad decisions because you're hurting my feelings.
Yeah.
Like
No, she's such a
Kim's
great character. She's one
wonderful.
of my favorite characters of the whole series
Hmm.
because she's just like that. She's just, she's there for everybody and is just such a great character. Yeah, she's so underutilized in the movie. And I think that was more of a complication of where they were at in the books when they wrote the script. Because I think only
Yeah,
probably the
because
first three volumes had been written, and she
mhm.
definitely comes more into focus in the later volumes.
Yeah,
Um,
like when she starts like really like, being there for Ramona,
yeah,
and
yeah, the
everything, that
friendship
is
between her
when,
and Ramona is a lot bigger in the later
yeah,
issues.
that's
So
like it's more prevalent in four.
yeah,
Um, and because, that's when Julie starts having like all the parties
yeah,
for like randomly
yeah.
just random
Any random ideas she has, she
any
moves into a
any
loft space,
theme.
and yeah,
Um, and it's just like it's cute and I love it. And I'm sorry, like now I'm cuddling with my cat. Um, uh, and it's just she's great and like Wallace means well. He does. And I
yeah,
love him because like he does try. And the thing is he's so unabashedly on Scott's side every time to the point that it's a bit of a flaw. And it's just like, I support you, Scott, except when I don't. And then I make
right,
it very clear. And then I make it very clear. But for the most part, he kind of enables a lot of Scott's bad behavior. He never makes Scott get a job. He
yeah,
never, like, he doesn't make Scott pay for stuff. He supports him. And I think it's nice that Scott has such a supportive friend, but like, it's just like, you have to let your friend grow the fuck up, man. And it's just
yeah,
like because like and then like when they finally comes down to like the lease thing, he's like, if you want it, it's like I'm really glad that you and Ramona are moving in together because like if you had said that you wanted to stay with me, it would have sucked because me and my boyfriend just signed a lease on a place and it would have been awkward to tell you that I didn't. It's just like and it's like he didn't tell him then because he didn't want to like hurt Scott's feelings because like
yeah,
Wallace, more than anyone else, knows how fragile Scott is because he lives with
yeah,
him. He's with him all the time. And he knows Scott is so incredibly fragile and he needs like constant support. And I think that one of the things like about him is that he also just maybe doesn't want to support him anymore.
yeah,
But he ends up, but when during the breakup with Ramona, he does it anyway. Like he sticks to those guns. But like he's such a catty bitch and I love him. I just he's so funny in the things that he says and the things that he does, especially like during the first like concert with Crash and the boys. And it's just like and he keeps yelling at them. And it's like this is for the guy who keeps yelling. It's called We Hate You, Please Die. A song for me? Awesome.
no, and
And
it's
it's
a
just
very
I
Kieran
I
Culkin character for sure.
oh God, so perfectly cast. I cannot
Yeah.
believe. Um, it's wonderful. Just he fits so well. And then like in the show when he starts that relationship with Todd, which I appreciate. The movie doesn't indicate that Todd is a serial cheater.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
in the book, he's cheating on her with I think the
Yeah.
drummer.
The drummer, yeah.
Um, Yeah. And then like he's cheating on Envy with Wallace in the thing.
Yeah.
But like the thing is he's convinced he's in love with Wallace and Wallace is like, we were just having fun.
Yeah.
He's like, you didn't feel the spark? And he's like, what's a spark?
There's no such thing as
And it's
sparks.
and then he gets it at the very end. And it's just like, oh good. Because like you see him in the future and he's like extremely happily married. You never see his husband because like, I think they want you to keep on guessing about who it is, and it just ends up being like, some guy he sees on the streets of Paris. Um, and it's really there's so many like things that are cute. I feel like the TV show like didn't do envy as much, but I don't know if that might have just been because of like Brie Larson's schedule and not being able to like
Well, I think it's just
put
a,
so much in it.
I think it's just more of a time issue. I think that,
Hmm.
because there were seven evil X's, they really needed to crunch down what they did with each one. And I think, honestly, I think as an adaptation, they did as best they could by, giving each character enough room to really shine.
I
And
agree about that
yeah.
because like I said, I really love seeing all this because like it's a little bit of a thing because one of the things that I noticed about the exes is just like how easygoing they are about the situation, depending on
Yeah.
how long ago they were in a relationship with Ramona. Like Matthew's the first one, they were kids, and he's just like, I'm just here because it's fight and I have mystical powers. And I
Yeah.
joined the league. And it's just like, and he like sends out letters and stuff. He's like, I'm trying to tell you that this is a thing that's gonna happen. And like Scott ignores them
Right.
because Scott is oblivious and like he's like and then you get like Lucas Lee who like in the comic like Scott comes at him. Lucas like throws him into a building and like immediately helps him up and says, I think it's time we take a break. I've got Gatorade and in
Yeah.
a cooler with some snacks and some baby carrots. And it's just like
Yeah.
and it's just like I love that big old nerd and I appreciate that they brought that big old nerd back in the freaking show because it's just like he's so harmless.
I mean, I think that's
Like
what's interesting about Lucas Lee too, is like he doesn't really like he's in it in the league, but like I don't think he's not trying to get Ramona back. He's just doing it for
no.
the fun more than anything. Like for him it's just a fun exercise more than it's for him to show off. Because he's
Yeah.
that movie star, and he just, it's not about getting Ramona back. It's not even about, trying to, show Ramona how cool he is or anything like that, because Ramona leaves halfway through, and, you know, and like he's
Hmm.
still beating on him because, he can. Um,
Yeah.
but, it's more about just showing him up. And,
Yeah.
and I think that's what's interesting. And that's really the first three X's really are about, um just, I don't, it's not even like clearing a grievance or anything like that, because Todd isn't about, like, he doesn't really inherently care either. There's a part of him, because
No,
Scott
Todd just
dated
sucks.
Envy, Todd
Yeah.
is there for Envy. It's kind of like he's doing her dirty work in a way. It's not
Yeah.
even about Ramona, it's about Envy.
And
So
like Envy is like literally like setting these things up and like egging the situation on and trying to
mhm.
make it worse because like she's equally mad at Ramona for dating Todd and she's mad at Scott for dating Ramona
Yeah,
and for like whatever like issues they had in their relationship and it's just like Envy
exactly.
sucks but I love her but she sucks. Like I am very hard pressed to find a character like despite like their sucking that I
Oh
don't like.
yeah.
Like I even like Julie, even though like in the comics she sucks so bad, but because she's an Aubrey Plaza in the movie, I love.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what inherently is great about Brian Lee O'Malley's writing as well, is that, especially because we get a little bit more time to live with the characters and we get a little bit more expanded information about them, is that you really come to enjoy these characters, even with the movie. Just what little bit we get is just enough to kind of endear each character to you, if you're open to that, if you understand that people are inherently flawed, and
Yeah.
um they can grow and change and everything. And hey, sometimes some people won't. I don't think Wallace is going to change very much.
No.
But, but sometimes that being bad is still just enough. Like, I like Envy, even though she's a terrible person. I like her because she's terrible. Sometimes you can like people because they're terrible. Um,
Yeah.
but but I mean that's
Again, I point everybody back to my love of Handsome Jack. God, I love him.
um but I mean I think that's what's interesting about the whole Todd and Envy thing is they're terrible people. They're terrible for each other. Um, but they're honestly probably better together because they're terrible, and
Mhm.
just keep them away
Kind of
from
helps them.
Scott and Ramona.
Yeah, it helps. Helps contain the damage that like no one else has to. But the unfortunate part is Todd doesn't contain the damage. Todd cheats, and he like fully
Yeah,
knows that this person. She's not gonna blame him. Like at least in the TV show, like she blames Todd. Like she doesn't really take much issue with Wallace because I think because she knows Wallace. Like she's aware of who Wallace is as a person, and she's just like,
right.
whatever. Todd, you fucking should know better. Like, yeah, Wallace is a slut. We expect this from him. We love him for it, but you. um, and it's just uh, it's I really feel like the acts that was done wrong the most in both the comic and the movie is Roxy. Roxy was done wrong, and the TV show fixed it because they gave her more time, more like characterization, and like a sit down conversation with Ramona that was something that they needed to have
Yeah,
because it was
exactly.
just like because it's Roxy's just like, well, I'm like, gay and like I thought we were something. I thought I meant something to you, and you're just saying that I was like, you were just curious in high school, even though the I was just a little bi curious. Well, I'm a little bi furious is one of the best lines to ever be
Yeah.
uttered upon screen or stage.
Well, and I think that's what's interesting about the movie too, is that the movie like really breaks that stuff down. Like, with the comic book, you get a little bit more breathing room with it and everything like that. But I think that's what's really fun about the 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 comic book itself. You got this more expanded storyline. The movie is a more condensed storyline, and then you get the TV show, which is interesting because it's not Scott's story. The TV
No, it's
show
everybody else's.
is well, and it's a lot more about Ramona.
And
Ramona
I that's also
finally
something that I
works through
wanted.
her stuff in that movie or in that show. Like, you
Mhm.
actually have Ramona, the mystery, because for anybody who doesn't know, in the first episode is largely the first part of the movie, up to the fight with Matthew Patel. And
Mhm.
then it looks like Matthew wins and Scott has been killed. But as we know, or as people find out, or should know, is that when somebody wins and they pop into coins and stuff like that, they don't really die. They just get sent back to their home, which is their starting point, save point, whatever, and then they just you know go on with their lives.
Depending on they don't
Um,
like and they don't show up again. Like
yeah. Well, and Brian Lee
they just did
O'Malley's
it. It's over.
yeah, Brian Lee O'Malley's like explanation for this has been that they just pop back home, and then because they're all from America, they don't have the funds to get back to Canada. So, because they were all
They
been
lose
paid
their
for
fleet.
by Gideon to go up there, so, and now it doesn't matter to them. They're like, whatever, it doesn't matter. We don't have the money to get back up there, and it's over. You know, we got beat. It's fine. So,
But
I,
also, like, I appreciated where it's just like Matthew's like, now you have to date me. And she's like, I don't want to. And he's like, wait, what? And she's like, yeah, I don't want to date you. And
yeah,
he's like, but I thought that's what this was about. And she's like, I didn't choose this. You all did this on your own. I'm
yes,
not dating you. Goodbye.
yeah. And I think that's
So
what's
he fights
interesting
Gideon
about
for
it
the
is that,
company.
yeah, and then Ramona then investigates Scott's death, because she thinks something's up. She thinks that he didn't really die, that he was just taken through a portal. And through the course of it, she comes across all of her exes and works it out with them. And like each thing is, all the exes have their own issues and everything that they're working through as well through all of this. And I think it's great because we get this, because the focus has been on Scott Pilgrim in both the comics and the movies. Everything's, it's his focus. It's all named after him.
Yeah,
But
it's his story.
I love that they gave Ramona the chance to expand her story and kind of grow on her own as well, through the TV show. Um,
Yeah, because like all of Ramona's growth happens off screen, so to speak, in terms of like the comics and the movies. And it's just like because we're following Scott, like it's not a diverging path where like one part of the comic is about him, one part of the comic is about her. It's all from Scott's point of view, so to speak. Like
yeah,
even though like, there's some scenes where Scott's not physically present for like the conversation being had, but for the most part, this is all Scott's story. And the Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, yeah, is Ramona's story, and it's about Ramona's journey to self-acceptance and growth. Um, and I think that's like one of the things like uh at the end of the movie, like I'm not gonna say I don't like it because I do. I love the end of the movie, and also I love the fight scene with Roxy. It's one of my favorite fight scenes in the entire movie.
yeah.
Where where she's just piloting him like a mech. um, but and technically that fight scene is supposed to be with Envy because it's with Envy in the comic.
Yes, yeah,
Um, but uh like at the end where it's like Scott gains the power of self-respect, and it's just like kind of cringy, but okay. Like it's just like Scott gets to that point before seeing Gideon.
yeah,
Like Scott is like on the cusp of it all when he sees when before he meets Gideon, he is healing after
yes,
once again having a conversation with Kim,
yeah.
the real bad bitch of the story. um and I know like it's the end of the movie has to condense a lot of things, so I'm not like holding it against the movie.
Right.
Because like I said, I like the ending just fine. I love the movie in and of itself. Like it's like there's not really much that I would change because like it's just like I know with time constraints and everything, I can't expect it a perfect. It's as perfect as it can be, having come from an incomplete series and also coming from a series of books where movies adapted from books don't tend to represent the core concept very well. Meanwhile, Scott Pilgrim did. It did represent the core concept perfectly,
Right.
even without the books being finished. It's like we got the vibe. We had the vibe. It's how like I know a lot of people don't agree with me with this, but like for me, it's like A Wrinkle in Time. Like there is no physical way that you can fit what's in the book in the movie. Like some things you can't even do with like like CGI effects. It's not they are impossible. Um but the movie made me feel the way the book made me feel when I read it. Like it had the same vibes, and that's why the movie's good for me.
Yeah.
I know a lot of other people would disagree with that statement, and that's fine. I loved A Wrinkle in Time when I was a kid. I read it constantly. And so I really looked forward to the movie. So when I went to the movie, I went within knowing like we cannot adapt the concepts that exist in A Wrinkle in Time to a
Yes.
film. Like that's not I'm not going to see all the things in the book on screen because they're not physically possible because some of these things are concepts. They are just concepts. They're not going to exist. But watching it made me feel this like lightness in my heart that like I felt as I read like this profound sadness and yet this profound joy an equal measure at different parts as I did in the book. So it's just like it was perfect for me, even though it was an imperfect movie. Or like Queen of the Damned, despite the fact that it is not even close to the book, I love the movie. And then there's another movie that is I cannot name because the person who wrote the original book is a trash can. Actually, no, I'll just go there. Stardust. I loved the
Mm,
movie Stardust more than I ever loved the book.
yeah.
I didn't like the book that much. Neil Gaiman's a trash can.
Yeah.
But like the way the movie made me feel was immaculate. It's obviously doesn't make me feel that way now, but at the time it made me feel wonderful. Like it was perfect to me and it wasn't like the book at all. So
Yeah.
like there are times where book adaptations and movie adaptations are really strong on their own merits, and Scott Pilgrim is one of the few times where I felt like it was equally for the same merits as strong.
Right. Well, I think that's what people have to remember, more than anything, is that when you are watching an adaptation, that's exactly what it means. It is an adaptation. It is trying its best to give you the feel and as much of the information as the source material gave you. It's not a direct translation of the material. Most comic book to movie adaptations are not going to be even remotely close to the source material. And you wouldn't want that, because there
I will raise my
is,
hand and say that I want the clown in a cornfield adaptation to be exactly like the book, and if it's not, I'm going to be very upset. And I already know that it's not because I've looked at the casting.
but that's what I'm saying though. Like, I don't get me wrong. Like, so I'm a big Hellboy fan. I love the Hellboy comics, and the I enjoy the Guillermo del Toro movies.
Oh
And I
yeah,
think they are great, for what they are, but they are not literal translations of the books. They don't
no,
have quite the same feel. They are Del Toro's vision of Hellboy. They
yes.
are his version. They are his, especially the second movie. They're much, much more a version of Hellboy through his lens.
That's
Um,
how I feel about the Blade movies, the first and second one. The
yeah,
third one I watched because it's basically seeing Ryan Reynolds do Deadpool before Deadpool.
yeah.
Um, but like that's how I feel about Blade. They're not even close to the comics or anything or
No,
copy of
no.
the comic book character. Like the Blade in the movies like is something that the Blade in the comic books eventually started to become
Yeah, the blade in the
because of the
yeah, the blade in the movies was much cooler than the blade that was in the comic books at the time. So,
yeah.
um,
But like I love that. I love them. And Stephen Dorff, if you're listening, I think that your character had a sexual relationship with Udo Kier's character, and I know Udo Kier won't care that I said that, but Stephen Dorff,
yeah.
I know that you will.
But yeah, I
He's
mean, I
not
just
listening, but I hope he
no,
does.
he's not. Yeah, I don't think I've never heard of Stephen Dorff listening to my podcast, but you never know. You never know who might be
He
listening.
could do it in secret.
Yeah, you never
We don't
know. I
know
mean,
what he does in his free time. I don't want to know.
somebody who knows him might be listening, and they might pass it along.
Yeah, tell tell him that. Tell him exactly what I said.
But I think that literal translations, not that they can't be good, because they can be. The Sin City adaptation is pretty faithful to the source
Perfect.
material.
I
Um,
think it's because Frank Miller and Robert Rodriguez share a brain with the same kind of Madonna horror complex.
sure.
Don't get
Um,
me wrong, I love Robert Rodriguez's movies, but he's
oh
got like
yeah.
an issue. And Frank
Um,
Miller has an issue, and
He's
it's
got
all over the pages, and we'll
he's got
just
a lot of issues, yeah.
he's got a lot of stuff going on. But I love like the first Sin City movie. Like my husband never saw it, and I showed it to him, and I'm like, I love this movie. And then I showed it to him before the sequel came out. That was way too late. It just
Yeah.
wasn't the vibe. Like
No.
it's just like
But that's
it
again,
just
I think
wasn't the vibe.
even if you have a straight adaptation, you have to still maintain the feel and because sometimes straight adaptations can feel dry. Um
Mhm.
there is going back to Hellboy. Del Toro had his two movies. He couldn't make a third one because they were just like, yeah, no, this isn't working for us. These movies didn't do well enough for us to keep doing them. So then they made another one on a smaller budget. This one by Neil Marshall. This is the one with David Harbour. I felt had a lot more of the feel. Still was an adaptation. Didn't quite grab. Wasn't a literal translation, but still had a lot of the feel of Hellboy. Um, and then there's been a recent one that came out last year called Hellboy the Crooked Man. And that
Oh
one
yeah,
was
isn't that the animated one?
no, 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 no. This was a live action with a different actor. I think Jack Kesey was the actor who played Hellboy. And this one was set in Appalachia. And was more of a monster story, detective kind of story, more of a real literal adaptation of two stories in the Hellboy books. And I feel like it was really good, but it was a little dry. And I feel like
Mhm.
that it wasn't. I think by going that literal translation route, you take out a little bit of that extra feeling of what you can get out of it. And um
I agree because like I'm a big fan of the Hellblazer comics and I
yeah.
love the Constantine movie, even though it does not contain
It
the
just,
chain
yeah.
smoking bisexual disaster that is Constantine. But I love it anyway. Like
Right.
I love it anyway for what it is. The vibes are so good, the characters so good. I mean,
Yeah.
Shia LaBeouf's character is not really much of anything, but like that freaking ending that we never got and might get now, where he's an angel. I was like, oh God, I want a sequel so bad.
Well, a sequel is supposedly coming, so we'll
I
see
don't
what
know.
happens.
We'll see. But like, God, like Tilda Swinton as Michael, just like, oh
Yeah.
God, all the perfection. Just such good casting on everything, and it like has
Yeah.
my favorite line that I use all the time. When people like try to give me that God's plan thing, and I'm just like, God's a kid with an ant farm. He's not planning anything.
Yeah. No,
And it's just
I
like, yeah, is that some edge lord shit? Of course, but I think it was one of the better, I think it was one of the better explanations of shit happens,
yeah.
and it sometimes it's awful.
Yeah. No, I really think that adaptations are great. Like, and I think that's what's great about Scott Pilgrim in the end is that, he had the source material and he really did do a straight adaptation to an extent. He still changes things, uses the the best of what he had available to him, condenses it, and makes it what it is. And changes a few things and everything, and then takes that vibe and continues that. And I think that was what was really good is that he was able to keep that vibe through the rest of it, even if it wasn't exactly the same as what we read in the books. And I think,
Yeah, it's like you still like you want to feel what you felt when you read the
yeah,
book,
yeah,
and you still
exactly,
and you still do. Like it's like it doesn't take away from anything. Like it didn't ruin anything. It like I didn't hate the movie, I didn't hate the books, and I didn't hate the TV show. And it's just like everything like just kept the vibe that like I
exactly.
I was looking for
And
when it
everything
comes to
feels
this
different
particular
too. The
series.
books are different from the movie, and the TV series is different from both of those. And that's what's even funnier about the TV show is the animation is done in the style of the comic book, but with the voices
Okay.
of the actors from the movie. It's like this great
Hmm.
melding of both things in one, but also being its own thing. And I think that's
Yeah.
what's ultimately really great. And Edgar Wright definitely was involved. He was a producer on the TV show as well, to keep this all connected. But it's just, I think that's what's really fun about the movie itself, is just that it was able to um continue a great story that spawned a really good TV show that was really fun. And it's just created this whole vibe. And I love that Brian Lee O'Malley keeps putting out he's not putting out new stories, but I would totally dig on a new story, about them in their 30s or something like that, about the group and how things have changed now that they're in their 30s or whatever. Um, but I'm okay with it sitting where it's at now too, which is what we have as well. I did
Yeah,
I had the comic books digitally.
me
I'd
too.
gotten them through a Humble Bundle. And I used to have them physically. I actually had the Evil X editions with like the super collectible. They were each like $100 originally. But I had to hunt them down, and get some of them off eBay and stuff. But but I ended up selling those because I was like, I wanted them, but at the same time I was like, I don't need these versions necessarily, and I know they can help fund other things. So I did actually.
And
It's
that's how I
funny
feel
too.
about my Johnny the Homicidal Maniac comic.
But that's what I did.
If anybody wants to like age me.
Well, the other day, in the course of all of this, as I ended up buying the 20th anniversary box set, and
Oh, lovely.
I actually prefer the color editions. Um,
Me
I
too. I
know
love the color
I know
editions,
it's
especially.
sacrilege because
Is that your
everybody's
real?
like,
Is that your
because
real hair color? That's still
yeah,
funnier in black and white.
yeah. And I love
But
that.
I
I
love
love
the
that there's
color
that coat.
edition.
Yeah. No, I think they give it a vibrancy, and just everybody like I the black and white editions are fine, but I love the color editions. Um, it's the same with Bone, the Bone comic book. I love Bone in its original black and white, but I like it even more in the color. Um, it's just, but yeah, so I got the 20th anniversary box set. I don't have it yet. It's supposedly being shipped to me
Um,
soon.
it's on
But
the way.
it's on the way. So we'll see. But yeah, no, it's just, I don't know. It'll be nice to have them on my shelf. I've got the movie. I'd love for Netflix to actually put things out on physical media, but they never will. Um,
Yeah.
but I
You
would
know
love
what?
to get a
Isn't
copy of
it
that.
great that like this helped revitalize like a love that we both have for like this series? Like, deep in our hearts, we both loved it, but it just came bubbling to the forefront. And it's just like, oh God, yeah, I forgot how much like I truly, truly do love this.
Yeah,
And
it
this
had been
is
a while
like
since I'd
I'm
read the
having
comic books. And so like this really gave me a chance to go back and read. And I was like, oh my God, this is like reading them again for the first time. Like so much
Mhm.
of this I
It's like
didn't remember.
I'm
Um
having such a good time with this. Like I engaged so much with this content. Like, and it's just like, and also it's just like because, like you said, Scott Pilgrim is a really, really large part of my life because like it was the start of what later became my marriage. Like
yeah. Yeah.
I married the man I saw Scott Pilgrim. Sorry, sorry, Rob. Rob is also gender fluid. So he's okay with most pronouns, and I can but call me
Right.
him and stuff. But like it his gender is a shrug. Um, uh,
Eh,
but like this is the person that I married, like who I started like a life with, and it started the night I saw that movie.
yeah.
I can categorize the last 15 years of my life starting at this exact point of watching Scott Pilgrim in my friend's truck at the drive-in. So like, I have such a really big emotional connection to it as well as just being fond of the material itself of just like I look at it and it's like one, I love this and two, I love what it brought me into my life and it's just like I love my husband. I love the life I've built with my husband and uh, without Scott Pilgrim maybe I would have never had it.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I think that's what's great. It's awesome that we can, find this. I mean, Scott Pilgrim as a comic book has been around for 21 years, and the movie itself will be celebrating its 15th anniversary this year. So I mean, it's very cool that that all of this is just, you know, I
Yeah,
don't know.
like
It's just
literally half my life. Half my life, like and it's just like, and the starting, it's like just like, the starting point was this movie that didn't get the a lot of praise and didn't make a lot of money, but like ended up being like the catalyst to like the best years of my life. And it's
no, and
it's
that's
just like,
awesome.
so like I think that it would be hard for me not to love it. Like, when Scott Pilgrim takes off, I didn't watch it by myself. I waited and waited till I could watch it with my spouse, because I we don't I wasn't doing it alone. Like, we didn't do the movie alone. I'm not doing the show alone. I play the game with him. Like, it's just like that's it's a me thing, but it's also an us thing.
Yeah.
So like, it means a lot to me, and I'm glad that it's like such a good thing, and I'm glad that it's so beloved by so many people, that like it, everybody can share in the joy of this great thing that existed. um this great comic book, this great movie, and this great TV show.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree.
Everybody gets a little bit of joy. Everybody.
No, absolutely. I love how much it has succeeded over time, and as much as it, failed upon release, I think that the cult following has definitely increased over time, especially because, I mean, look, if it hadn't been for that cult following, we would have never gotten that Netflix TV show. So,
Exactly.
and I love that it has done so well after its initial theatrical run. So,
And
hopefully.
it's very funny because I've never been on the train of, oh, I liked it before it was popular. I mean, I could have probably been on a train like that, but this is like one of the first things. It's like, I liked it before it was popular. But I love that it's popular. Like, I love that unlike, the people, it's like, I liked it before it was popular. It's like, I liked it before it was popular. Now all of you guys like it too, and we can talk about it. It's just like, I'm not alone. I hate being alone in a fandom. I hate it. Like, it's just like, I want to talk to everybody
Right.
about it. Everybody else loved this thing I love. That's why it's sad that no one liked Hemlock Grove. Lord knows I want to talk about it a lot.
That's funny.
The show that only had 2 seasons and not a third one, there was never a third season. And if you tell me that there did, I'm going to yell over you. Yeah, you ever have a show or like something like that? It's just like, okay, they made a thing, but if you tell me that they made it and it was really bad, I'm just gonna yell over you.
Yeah.
'Cause no, it didn't.
No, there's been a couple of shows like that where they continued it, and it was like, yeah, those other couple of years don't count. It ended
The show
here.
Lost Girl really was one of those shows for me where it was just so good when it started, and then it just stopped being good as soon as like Kenzie wasn't. They killed all the good characters, and it's just like, I didn't really care about Bo as a character. She was like there, and like, sure, her storyline was great, but like, it was all the side characters who kind of like gave the show flavor, and now that you killed them, it's kind of like, eh.
That's funny.
Or
All
like,
right.
really all I can think of. But yeah, we were right. This was incredibly girthy and incredible conversation.
Yes.
We were correct when we were telling like talking over Discord and being like, okay, let's stop talking about it so that we can talk about it on the show.
Exactly. No, and I think that's what's it's a lot of fun. If for some reason you haven't watched this movie, please go watch it. It's
Please go watch
so
it.
much
Please read the
fun.
comic books.
Yes, read the
Watch the show.
comic
Do
books,
it all.
watch the movie, watch the TV show, just absorb it all. It's so good. I would argue watch the movie first, then read the
Hmm.
comic books. I know
I would also say that.
there's a lot of, because I think you will be less disappointed if you read the comic books first and watch the movie then, because if you read the comic books first, you'll be disappointed that there's stuff that you would like in it that didn't show up. But if you watch the movie first, then you read the comic books, you'll get this greater depth to this bigger background to everything that they couldn't get to in the movie. So, and then watch the TV show afterward. So,
yeah, TV show always comes last because you will not, without the prior context, you will not appreciate the TV show half as much.
Yeah, definitely. So, but that's all I have for today. Why don't you let people know where they can find you online?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm not on there a lot, but I am there. If you're in Robert's Discord for Creepy and Geeky, I am in there, and that's probably the best way to get a hold of me if you want to talk to me, because I get notifications for that, and for Twitter, I have notifications turned off.
Yeah, I don't even go on Twitter anymore, so
I'm doing a little bit of a social media detox. So,
same.
Other than like my Facebook, which is my personal private Facebook, so I'm not going to tell you where to find me on that. Where I do charity work. Speaking of which, do you mind if I plug
Sure
a bit? Okay. Please go visit Vox Noir. In regards to helping out a lot of Black mothers and Black trans people who need assistance, food assistance, reproductive care assistance, child assistance. It is a great charity. It's run by Creighton. You know her on Twitter as Harriet Carried. She is a gift to this world. But please, if you can give in any way, please do so, just because we're out here trying, well, more Creighton and Buffet do all the work. They're trying to make life just a little bit easier for people who are in really bad situations or have nothing. So please visit Vox Noir. That's VOIXNOIRE. And thank you, Robert, for letting me plug that.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thank you for coming on. This is a great conversation. I had a lot of fun, and we'll get you on again here soon for another episode.
Always happy to.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for listening. Creepy and Geeky is produced and hosted by Robert Clark. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. You can follow the podcast by going to creepyandgeeky.com and clicking on any of the social links. If you'd like to follow me, you can find my links at geekthulu.com. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more on TeePublic or by donating to the coffee page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.